Hello, Math 7 students. We are still working in Module 3, and we are going to start Lesson 4, which is called Using the Identity Property and Inverse to Write Equivalent Expressions. And we can find that on page 84. So I will turn there now, and here is page 84 in my comp book. So our title is Using the Identity and Inverse Properties to Write Equivalent Expressions. Our goal for today we will use the identity property of 0 and 1 and use the inverses to write equivalent expressions. Our question, what happens to the expression when you multiply it by a negative 1? Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit. This first little part is going to be a little bit of a review for everybody. So the additive property of 0 means that when you have a subtraction problem, you can add the opposite and get the answer of 0. So let's test it. If we have 2 minus 2, we can change this subtraction symbol to a plus, this positive 2 into a negative 2, so that our new problem says 2 plus a negative 2 equals 0. Okay? Same thing happens over here. So we have negative 4 minus a negative 4. So this subtraction problem becomes a plus. The opposite of negative 4 is 4. So now we have negative 4 plus 4 equals 0. So when you add the opposite, you always come up with a 0. I would like you to try these two by yourself. The difference of 5 and 5. So difference means you're subtracting, and the two numbers are 5 and 5. So you can show your work right here, and we'll check them in class tomorrow. The difference of x and x. Difference again means to subtract, so you're subtracting x and x. So x minus x, and then follow this process of the additive property of 0. The thing that you need to take away from this little review is the sum of a number and its inverse is always equal to 0. The sum of a number and its inverse is equal to 0. So the sum of a number, 2, and its inverse, negative 2, gives you 0. Okay? All right, the next thing that we're reviewing a little bit on the next page, still same title, Using the Identity and Inverse Properties to Write Equivalent Expressions, is called the Multiplicative Property of 1. And you use the Multiplicative Property of 1 a lot when you're working with fractions and you're dividing. Okay, the way we remember it is the opposite operation of multiplication is division. So if we have 3/4 divided by 3/4, the way that we can prove this is remembering that division is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal means that you take the numerator and the denominator and you change places with them. So the denominator becomes the numerator becomes the denominator. So our new problem that is listed is 3/4 times 4/3 equals, what is 3 times 4? 12. What is 4 times 3? 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. Okay, we can try it over here as well without fractions. We have 4 divided by 4. So remembering that division is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we have 4 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So then I have two more that I would like you to try. Okay, we have 1/9 divided by 1/9. So you're going to show me exactly what I did up there, right here. We have negative 1/3 divided by negative 1/3. I'm going to use the same pattern that you saw up above. I want you to show me that right here. We're going to check that when we get to class tomorrow. So the takeaway from this is the product of a number and its multiplicative inverse is equal to 1. Okay, the product, that means you're multiplying something together, of a number and its multiplicative inverse. That means the numerator becomes the denominator becomes the numerator. When you multiply them straight across, you get 1. So I have two other problems that I would like you to practice, and they are the opposite of 5x minus 1 and 5x. Okay, the opposite of 5x minus 1. So what's the opposite of 5x? Negative 5x. What is the opposite of subtracting 1? Adding a negative 1. So you have negative 5x plus a negative 1 and 5x. I want you to play with that and see what you come up with. The second one, the reciprocal of 3 and the quantity negative 6y minus 3x. You're going to try both of those, and we'll talk about them in class if that's a little confusing. They're kind of fun if you can figure out what the words mean. So let's go back to our goal for today. Our goal for today is we will use the identity property of 0 and 1, which is what we just talked about, and use of inverses to write equivalent expressions. The inverses, we did it all over the page. What happens to the expression when you multiply it by a negative 1? What happens to it when it becomes, or when you multiply it by a negative 1? The answer is always its opposite. That is right. You are correct. All right, that's all that I have today, kiddos, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.